So, I don't know about you guys, but my favourite Call of Duty Zombies was definitely Black Ops 3. That game had two of my favourite maps, which were Shadows of Evil and Eisendrache. Both get into my top 5. It also had Zetsubo no Shima, which, okay, wasn't a brilliant map when it came out. I have done a video on it since. If you want to check it out, I will link it down in the description. I don't think it's as bad as we thought now, going back to play it. But yeah, Zetsubo no Shima's not one of the best Zombies maps. And then, of course, it also had Gorod Karovian Revelations, which a lot of people like Gorod. For some people, it is in their top 5s. For me, personally, I think it's okay. And then Revelations, we could see what they were trying to do. And again, it's not a terrible map, but it wouldn't go into my top 10. And then let's also not forget the bonus map, which was the Giant. The Reese had definitely been one of my favourite maps for a very long time. And the fact that they brought it back, the Giant, I think, is a perfect remaster. So overall, Black Ops 3 was my favourite Zombies. And it also includes my favourite map, Eisendrache. If you were to ask me what is my number 1, it is for the longest time being between this and Mob of the Dead. So what makes Eisendrache so great? Why do I consider it to be the best? First off, taking your minds back to February the 2nd, 2016, when Eisendrache released first for the PlayStation 4 and then 1 month later for the Xbox. This was without a doubt the biggest launch of a Zombies map I can remember. Even to this day with Black Ops 4, Zombies should be getting bigger year after year. I can't remember the launch of any Zombies map being as big as Eisendrache. The hype around this map, with it being DLC 1, was insane. We saw nothing like this for Black Ops 2 or Black Ops 1 maps. We definitely didn't see this with Black Ops 4's Dead of the Night. In fact, that was probably the worst launch I've ever seen to a Zombies map. But Eisendrache's was insane. The hype around it was unreal. And the amount of live streams for the Easter egg attempting to figure out where the storyline was going. Apart from Revelations, I've never seen so many people watch an Easter egg get completed. If I'm not wrong, I believe it was this map. It could have been Revelations. It was insane, especially for a DLC 1. Like I said, you could probably expect it for DLC 4 since that was supposedly the end. But the excitement around it was crazy. However, getting into the map itself, as I'm sure you guys know if you've been watching me for a long time, I love Zombies maps that are based off real life places like Mob of the Dead with Alcatraz. Generally, maps that are based around real life places I think are really good, and Eisendrache is a prime example. We know it takes place in Hohenwerfen, or Hohenwerfen, however you pronounce that, but it's a castle in Austria, and literally just playing this map made me want to visit this location. The map itself generally looks stunning, it's very nice. Some maps can look dull, a little bit boring, but Eisendrache is very unique, and especially looking out of the castle onto the town with the mountains surrounding. It is one of the best looking maps, but what was also good was the fact that it was so unique. For example, the intro cutscene. I don't think it was anything special, it didn't reveal too much. It wasn't brilliant story-wise, however, the way it was given to us, in a cartoon kind of comic book style, it was definitely different to any other intro cutscene we'd had. It kind of reminded me of the Black Ops 2 days and the cutscenes we had for Green Run, Die Rise and Buried with the transit crew. And then once you'd finished watching that and you loaded into the map, you started off on the catwalk near to the gondolas, and the first thing you would see behind you was a rocket launch. Again, just one of the many things in this map that are aesthetically really pleasing to look at. Of course, we know storyline wise, Dempsey was actually on that rocket and he was being transported to Earth. Our whole objective in this map was to stop that from happening, to somehow bring Dempsey's rocket back down to the castle. The gondola system was very cool. It was a unique way for them to give us power-ups. Instead of on previous maps like Origins where we'd dig them up, you could actually collect a fuse, put it into the gondola system, and you would have the chance of getting a random power-up or sometimes even a weapon. You could even do an Easter egg to get the ray gun. Another unique feature on this was not just the pack-a-punch, which was surprisingly easy to do on a lot of maps. I would say Shadows of Evil, but it wasn't easy, just time-consuming. But on Eisendrache, all you had to do was go to 3 pretty easy to reach locations, press the interactive button, and the pack-a-punch would appear. And that's without even mentioning how cool the pack-a-punch camos were. The fact that you could get different colours was, and I don't want to keep repeating this, but one of the many unique things to this map that made it so good. Because this map, I wouldn't say it was big, however, there were a lot of upper and lower levels and tight twisty spaces that you would have to go round. Instead of walking everywhere, there was a transport system called the Wonder Sphere, where simply you could activate a landing pad, step into the Wonder Sphere, and you'd be taken to a different location on the map. They were very fun, kind of similar to the gravity lifts on Moon, and we also saw this feature come back later on in Revelations. There were a couple of different traps, one being the standard electric defense that we'd seen previously. However, unique to Eisendrache, one of my favourites was the Death Ray. I thought that was super fun and especially useful for taking out the boss on this map, which I haven't come to yet, but that was the Panzer Soldat. It's kind of difficult to name things that are bad about this map. Usually you could list one or two, but because I think this was so perfect, even the boss, which I will admit could be a pain in the arse, but I actually think he was quite fitting. Yes, it could get difficult. It was a different version of him to the one we saw in Origins. This time, he had shock charges instead of the rotating claw. He was annoying, but if you had the right weapons, you can quite easily kill him. Moving into the weapons, well, of course, there was the bows, but in order to get them, you first needed to feed all 3 dragon heads. It's clearly a feature that was taken from Mob of the Dead, where we had the Cerberus dogs, but it worked really well. It looked freaking cool, and it went with the name of the map, and it's still kind of a mystery as to how they got there in the first place. They turn to stone once you feed them enough zombies, and then you can get yourself the bow. It was actually called the Wrath of the Ancients, but this was the basic version of the wonder weapon, and then you could upgrade it to get 4 different elemental bows. I love it when maps do this, when they give us each a wonder weapon to use, so we don't have to share or only one person can get it on the map at the same time. I've argued with my friends so many times over who's getting it, but on Horizon you don't have to worry about that because you can get 4 different wonder weapons. Each hold their own, each are very good. Some of them are easy to get, some of them are a little bit harder, so it does give you a challenge, but they're extremely useful. And I remember when this map came out, I don't know specifically which bow it was off the top of my head. It might have been the Storm Bow or the Lightning, but it was that powerful you could literally camp in a corner and use it to get to stupidly high rounds. The bows were definitely some of the best wonder weapons we've ever had, but they weren't the only things. We also had the Ragnaroks, which were again very useful. The first time we ever saw them was in Eisendrache. They've recently been brought back in Black Ops 4 Zombies as special weapons. As you can see, Eisendrache introduced so many new and unique things, which in a lot of cases have returned later on. Another things are the skeletons. You could do an Easter egg in this map that would cause the zombies to turn into skeletons, and of course recently in Ancient Evil, when you activate the artifact, we've seen these return. Something else I loved about this was the zero gravity aspect in the temple. This was part of the Easter egg, and also you would need it to collect the shield. I don't know, I just really loved this map. I can't say a bad word about it. I'm trying to think of a feature or an Easter egg, just something tiny that wasn't really good, and I can't think of a single thing. So really there's nothing. If you guys have anything, please do leave it in the comment section below. But Eisendrache, it's fantastic. I don't think we'll ever see a map like this again, especially not the launch we had. This was literally the peak of zombies. This was where it was at its height, where it was at its best, and then after this, I don't believe a map's been able to really live up to it. Therefore, zombies, I wouldn't say it's gone downhill, but it hasn't reached this point again, even years later. As I always like to do, finally talking about the main Easter egg, it's the most important thing. I don't think the Easter egg itself is the best we've had. I don't think it's the worst. It is a challenge, but again, it's not the hardest. If you're doing it for the first time, you're probably not going to complete it unless you're really good at zombies. Some steps can be tedious. And then when you get to the end, the boss battle, this was one of the first times we actually had a boss battle in zombies. Yes, on the map before this, Shadows of Evil, we fought against the Shadow Man, but this one I feel was on a different scale, where we know that the keepers who were helping us traveled to the moon, where he got corrupted, and when he returned, he was evil, so we had to fight against him, a giant corrupted keeper. It was really cool. However, the boss battle itself, in my opinion, is challenging. It's not actually killing him, but it's the other enemies around, the zombies, the skeletons, the other enemies that you have to defeat are what make it really quite challenging. If you're doing it on your own, personally, I think it's difficult. And even with 4 players, it can be hard for them to revive you if you do go down, just because the amount of enemies there are in a small room. So it's hard, but I wouldn't really complain about a challenge, especially if it's just in a boss battle. Either way, it is really cool, and like I said, this really was the start of this type of ending in Zombies, because before this, you would do Easter eggs in BO2 and BO1, and then it would just end, or you'd carry on the game. You wouldn't get a boss battle, but with Black Ops 3, it introduced this, and then as we've seen ever since, this is what we've seen in Black Ops 3 and Black Ops 4. So it was really cool, and then of course, one of my favourite things about completing the Easter egg, just before the boss battle, we got to see all of the rockets take off from the castle and destroy the moon. That was definitely a sight to remember. And then finally, the ending cutscene, I have to say, was extremely emotional. Seeing Dempsey have to kill his ultimate self by turning off his life support. Because remember, Dempsey was pretty much the first one to have to kill himself. Yes, Richtofen did it before in the Giant, but there was no emotional connection there because Ultimus Richtofen was a dick, whereas Ultimus Dempsey was nice, I guess. And it was just more emotional to watch. It was a very good cutscene, which perfectly just describes this map. It is very good. In fact, it's more than that, it's a masterpiece. For me, it's the best map we've ever had. Will anything ever get close to this? I really don't know. And it's not just the map itself, it's the hype that was around it as well. That just made it 10 times better. So there we go. That for me is why Eisendrache is the best map we've ever had in Zombies. Let me know your thoughts down below. Which is your favourite Call of Duty Zombies map? As always, hopefully you have enjoyed. If you have, drop a like rating. Make sure you are subscribed to stay up to date with the latest videos on the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, goodbye.